Tap, tap. You ready, Bubba? Well, this I can't see all the hair on my legs. You ready, Bubba? Oh, it's not enough. All right, there you go. That's my little braha. Yes, sir. Should be doing this downstairs, huh? Don't lift the bag like this. Put it over there. Yes, sir. Moonshine. Good boy. Good boy. That's my boy. Supposed to shave. Shave up this. Feel you like downstairs, you little fathead. Supposed to walk. It's raining. Oh, that's it. That's the hit. Oh, that's it. it? You want to go out in the rain? No? No. How's that? Are you looking at the bird? That's a blue jay. You don't want to respond now? You want to go out in the rain and smell it? Smell the rain? I don't think it's normal. Look how you got your mouth open. See, there ain't nothing normal about that rain. You get a contact? What is it? I need to close the window? I guess that's a yay. I'm gonna close the window. It don't even smell right. It don't smell like rain to me outside. Mouth all wide open. What you gonna snap? What's out there? The hairs, bro. Why you always want to lunge at my feet? Well, it's playtime. You got your goodie. Now you want to attack. You want to attack mode. What is it, Clark? What is it, Clark? What you running for? You felt that? You felt that, huh? Don't be scared. You should know by now. Let's go ahead and get this reading in. We gotta run out. Had another nice little nap, as you can see. Nice little nap. When I'm tired, my body tells me, yo, Ray, you need to get some sleep. It doesn't matter if I just lay there and close my eyes, I'm gonna get some sleep. Let's go ahead and get into this reading. DNA of the Gods, The Anunnaki Creation of Eve and the Alien Battle for Humanity by Chris H. Hardy. Excuse me. Anyway, that's Ganejos with a small bag of flax, about 2 tablespoons, and 1 organic orange. That's about it. Well, so-called organic, and it's got maybe 1 or 2 seeds. I'm eating it anyway. I'm not even worried. And my pomegranate juice, which is bonito, just perfect, fabuloso. Ensnaring and rape. I know we read most of this, because I know we got over to only when the young girl forgave him and decided to be his wife that Enlil was absolved and came back from his exile. Excuse me. Well, it says the commander-in-chief of the gods on earth raped a young medical student trained by his half-sister Nimna. He was sentenced by a jury of judges to be exiled. It is only when the young girl forgave him and decided to be his wife, and here he goes, that Enlil was absolved and came back from his exile. Okay, now we pick up from there. To get back to the fateful picnic, the faithful picnic, the way his half-sister interprets the nightmare, saying that their elder brother Marduk will come to her rescue, that he will accuse Dumuzi of rape and go after him. And Spaces says, puts Dumuzi totally off balance. And in fact, people sent by Murdoch appear and start chasing him. Dumuzi. I know a guy from Lemur whose name is Dumuz, without the I. Flees and escapes twice from his pursuers. But during the chase, he drowns in the river, in all probability by accident. And Nana, I know an African woman named Nana, seriously I do, is both in despair and in a rage against Murdoch. She forgets all about the evil deed she and Dumuzi had conceived and holds Murdoch responsible for her lover's death. And then she starts to get the support of other gods who band together in their will to punish Murdoch. The mistake of Murdoch, the eldest brother, is to have acted impulsively on his rage in order to avenge his raped younger sister. Instead of demanding that an assembly of the gods or the judges deliberate on Dumuzi's act, this mistake will lead to the Second Pyramid War, in which Inanna will finally have Murdoch imprisoned in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, we always believe that the biggest pyramid, and it can be in constraint, that was in North America, but I believe the biggest one was it between China, in China, or in Prussia. I am dead serious. I didn't get to visit that one. I got to go to this one pyramid in China that's overlooked. It's like it was buried or something. And they deny it being a pyramid, but those of us who are in the know and see the so-called mountain, it is definitely not a mountain. If you look at the basic geography of it, it is not a mountain. It is covered over. As people are finding out in Florida, that there's a building which I shared, there's buildings well over several thousand years, if not older. As I stated, Louisiana, some of the oldest architecture that was quickly destroyed in St. Louis. And people want to argue, the pale skins want to argue this, that, and other. And yet I keep saying, some of you were our people, but the majority of you aren't. Our women birthed, this is medical, 200 pale babies between people as dark as Medgar Evers and Martin Luther King. We're talking about cheating not, for those who are in that cheating stuff. Birth and well under to over 200 pale babies a year. And that's why so many were lynched and murdered who fought beside us. There is a difference. And you cannot assimilate and become that which you aren't. Those who are our people literally have Negro and Black from the 60s and 70s on their birth. You know what the certificate is? It's a 10. Anyway, and it's there. If you don't have it, and if you enumerate yourself out, you're not us. And that's that, final. This mistake will lead to the Pyramid War, in which Inanna will finally have Marduk imprisoned in the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Ekur. But before that happens, traumatized by the death of Dumuzi and in a psychic agony, Inanna, in parentheses it states, who has now no more domain of her own apart from Eric, since she was living in Dumuzi's African territory, and decides to go visit her sister Ereshkigal, married to Nagal, at the tip of Africa. And the story is reported in the text Inanna's descent to the underworld. The term Abzu having been systematically translated as underworld. Abzu, underworld. A perfect projection of the myth as a subterranean. And they had to throw a myth to dismiss the possibilities of an underworld. World of the dead, such as the Greek Hades, are as we say, in Sheol. Sishton convincingly showed that Abzu meant the land of mines, and Enki's original domain in southern Africa, the mining facilities, and by extension, Africa's continent at large. The tablets often refer to Enki's domains surrounded by the seas, a description befitting a continent, but quite an impossibility for an underworld. The sister space, rightly or not, because Inanna is neither devoid of scheming nor of trickery. Space believes that Inanna will now try to be a second wife to her husband, and Nagal, in order to get to the same succession results as she would have with Dumuzi, that is, a royal heir bringing together the two clans and thus territories, to which this is Sichan's interpretation based on the laws of marriage that demanded an elder brother of the deceased husband to take the widow as a wife, since Ereshkigal, if giving birth to a son, would herself have a royal heir. Combining the two clans, she decides to get rid of Inanna, who could only thwart her own plans. As Inanna approaches their abode, Ereshkigal commands that she be deprived at each of the 7 successive gates, and bit by bit of her emblems of power. Now, in parentheses, it states the MEs that are carried on oneself, and of her princely clothing. Let's note that these emblems and clothing had secret powers, whether technological or magical, like the MEs. And finally, when Ereshkigal holds an audience in her throne hall, into which Inanna is introduced practically naked, she has hastily convened a meeting of Anunnaki to serve as a would-be jury of 7 judges who, staging a blitz mock trial, accuses Inanna and sentences her to be hung at a stake right away. And thus Inanna dies, but, says the text, her father-in-law Enki, on hearing the terrible news, rushed 2 emissaries to save her. Upon the corpse they directed that which pulsates and that which radiates. They administered to her the water of life and the food of life, and Inanna arose. These events are estimated by Shishkan to have happened between 3450 BC, before 3450 before the Common Era, and 3100 before the Common Era. Finally, the gods decided to give to Inanna, as a compensation, the lordship over the 3rd region, the Indus Valley. Then next we'll get into the odious planned annihilation of humanity, which is pretty friggin' freaky. The Book of Giants, The Watchers, Nephilim, and the Book of Enoch by Joseph Lumpkin. I like this book. Actually, I do. I always like the Book of Enoch, especially the original. Well, I guess the 3rd or 4th from the original. Okay. We went through Jubilees, Joshua, we read all those. So here in chapter 13, we get into the bullet points. That's what I call them. 1, and Enoch went and said, Azazel, you shall have no peace. When we last left off, okay, let me get it right. We were in Joshua 4:17, and we were 4:17 all the way through 21. And in 21, the last part is stated, and Noah found grace in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord chose him and his children to raise up offspring on the face of the whole earth. Now we know about the deluge. That's part of our dynamic in our story. It really is. For those who actually know our stories, it's not part of theirs. They kind of usurped it and they kind of twisted it. But anyway, 1, and Enoch went and said, Azazel, you shall have no peace. A severe sentence has been passed against you, that you should be bound. And 2, it states, and you shall not have rest or mercy. In parentheses, toleration nor request granted, and because of the unrighteousness which you have taught, and because of all the works of godliness. 3, and unrighteousness and sin which you have shown to men. 4, then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them. 5, and they asked me to write a petition. Because you gotta remember, he's Megatron. He's what do we call it? Megatron, whatever. Megatron. Now he's a scribe, or he's become the scribe of the hand. For them that they might by excuse me, find forgiveness, excuse me, y'all, forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. They had been forbidden to speak with him, nor were they to lift up their eyes to heaven for shame, or their sins because they had been condemned. Number 6, when I wrote out their petition and the prayer in regard to their spirits and their deeds individually, and in regard to their request that they should obtain forgiveness and forbearance. Number 7, and I went off and sat down at the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the southwest of Hermon. I read the petition until I fell asleep. And in 8 it states, and I had a dream, and I saw a vision of their chastisement, and a voice came to me that I would reprimand them to reprove. Number 9, and when I awoke, I came to them, and they were all sitting gathered together, weeping in Abel's jail, which is between Lebanon and Sinir, with their faces covered. Is that why we were over there blowing up all those different things and digging all over the place? The windows closed. You had your mouth hung open like you hit a piece of meth or something. One of them people out there looking like. Number 10, and I recounted to them all the visions which I had seen when I was asleep. And I began to speak the words of righteousness and to reprimand heavenly watchers. In chapter 14, it starts off, and we're going to run right through these. We'll get into the exposing, and it's 10 of them. This is the book of the words of righteousness and of the reprimand of the eternal watchers, in accordance with the command of the Holy Great One in that vision I saw in my sleep. What I will now say with a tongue of flesh and with the breath of my mouth, which there's a difference, all right, which the Great One has given to men to speak with it and to understand with the heart, which most people don't. They take things to heart but don't understand. As he has created and given to man the power of understanding the word of wisdom, so has he created me also and given me the power of reprimanding the watchers, the children of heaven. So pay attention to what this is said. As he has created and given to man the power of understanding and the word of wisdom. This is the conundrum that's fabricated between the New Testament and not understanding the old ones when people read, okay? I wrote of your petition. You got to know, biting of the fruit, or ate of the fruit, does not necessarily mean a physical fruit, people. Your words can be a fruit. What I gaze upon could be a fruit. Are you aware that beautiful only means nice? I'm just asking y'all. Are you aware, for those who are big into the etymology of words, are you aware that beautiful simply means nice? It doesn't mean nothing exuberant or way out there. If I was to say to you, oh, you're priceless, it is much more than the word beautiful. Now, you know, I say it in Anayoia, some people say Cherokee, but anyway, even that means more than the word beautiful. When I say my beautiful, I give it to you, family, much more. Okay? I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared that your petition will not be granted to you throughout all the days of eternity, and that judgment has been finally passed on you. Your petition will not be granted. From here on, you shall not ascend into heaven again for all eternity, and you will be bound on earth for all eternity. Before this, you will see the destruction of your beloved sons, and you shall have no pleasure in them, but they shall fall before you by the sword. Your petition shall not be granted on their behalf or on yours, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in my writings. And in the vision, I saw clouds that invited me and summoned me into a mist, and the course of the stars and the flashes of lightning and hurried me and drove me. Flashes of lightning, a mist, a vision. In the vision, I saw clouds that invited me and summoned me into a mist, and the course of the stars and the flashes of lightning and hurried me and drove me. Influenced and pushed them. But what was it? It was something physical. And the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me up and bore me into heaven. And I went in until I drew near to a wall, which was built out of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire. And it began to frighten me. Lamentations, words. I went into the tongues of fire and drew near a large house, which was built of crystals. It was summoning, words spoken, powerful, frequency, a vibration, unparalleled. And the walls of the house were like a mosaic of hailstones, and the floor was made of crystals like snow. In Revelations 4:6, I'm just going to read this. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne, around about the throne, were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And he carried me away in 21:10 in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city. Remember the high mountain, Flatlandis, Negro Mountain, the waters that nobody can go. It sucks everything in. But there are giants and midgets, dwarfs of grand stature that are protecting around it. And this mountain goes all the way. No one can fly near it. They can't fly over it. Trust me. Anyway, great city in the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from the Creator, having the glory of the Creator, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal, and had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels and names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. That's why I say Israel is not down here. It's nowhere around. That's why we never owned anything. We belong to the earth by way of choice. There is no, all the stuff that these idiots are doing, they are in strong delusion. They are compelled. And they work with the enemy, the so-called leaders. But man has no leader. But see, that's our way. And most of y'all have accepted theirs in ignorance. Just like they believe that they lied. They take your foot and they take your palm when you're born. When you come into this world. Okay? And they believe that doing that through trickery, they have ownership over you. And then lamentation by your parents lying to them. Does a lie become fact? Are you supposed to live by it? That's why I have an issue with all you people talking about, I changed my status and I did it, blah, blah, blah. You're not thinking. I'm not here to beat you up. I'm being very, very extra. This is extra curriculum for you. If you want to hold on to the game that they have played with you because they have made you believe that they're above you, and the terms of these idiots using the word elite. Elite what? In lies? If you are pragmatic because you got jackboos running around, that means that you are fearful, you are afraid, and you don't know the truth. So there's no lamentation in you. Its ceiling was like the path of the stars, and lightning flashes, and between them were fiery cherubim. And it's not what they've made you believe. It's not little tiny little babies for their morbid pedophile, whatever. And their sky was clear as water. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its doors blazed with fire. I entered the house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no pleasures or life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold of me. As I shook and trembled, I fell on my face, and I saw a vision. And lo, there was a second house greater than the first. And all the doors stood open. Oh my goodness, stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. And in every respect, it was splendid and magnificent to the extent that I cannot describe it to you. So whenever you hear people talking about, look at this, the vision, and oh, you have 47, this, that, and all, and 42, they don't know nothing. They have usurped any knowledge and truth, and they don't know nothing. And I looked and saw a throne set on high. Its appearance was like crystal, and and its wheels were like a shining sun. And there was the vision of cherubim. And from underneath the throne came rivers of fire, so that I could not look at it. And he who is great in glory sat on the throne, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angelic ones could enter or could behold his face, because of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. The sea of fire surrounded him, and a great fire stood in front of him, and no one could draw close to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, but he needed no holy counsel. The most holy ones who were near to him did not leave night nor day. And until then I had been prostrate, on my face trembling. And the Creator called me with his own mouth and said to me, "Come here, Enoch, and hear my word." And one of the holy ones came to me, picked me up, and brought me to the door, and I bowed down my face to the door. Physical sounds? Well, what can the door be? Anyway, I just want to leave it at that. Because everything that these fake preachers and everybody else have taught everybody has made them blind. And they did it willingly. Hold on. This is so good. Oh my goodness. Exposing the Expositions, 1851-1950. It's the revised edition, 2021, 2019, by Howdy Mikowski. You know, that's Chicago, if y'all know what it is. The Wishball Hall, which is excellent. So we had somebody remove a light. Look at, like I'm not here for the masses. Thank you. So what? Take your goofy mechanical behind somewhere else. So anyway, where we at is the San Francisco 1894 mechanical building and tower, which would be dynamited in 1896. Okay, so 2 years later. I remember I showed y'all the picture of it. Now, that's an actual picture. That's an actual photo. It's pretty awesome. All right. Anyway, I'm going to read this part where we left off at, and then we'll take it from there. I think we are looking at a city at the edge of being taken over, found dead, discovered. This might be a photo the day the resettlement began. Not some 30 years after being founded by some cowboys and miners, the 1850 drawing we have of Portsmouth Square indicates that San Francisco is not what was normally presented as at this period. What were historians doing during this time frame? Why was no one reporting it? While the San Francisco Fair of 1950 will be our focus, few people know that there was actually an earlier major fair in 1894 on the heels of the end of the one in Chicago. The 1894 fair, why is it so blank like that? The 1894 fair opened on January 27th and took place, 27th the number, and took place, for those of you like gematria, and pay attention to the numbers, and took place in Golden Gate Park. It ended on July 4th. The idea came from Chicago Exposition Commissioner Michael H. D. Young, who thought, while the country was going through a giant recession, that a fair in California would help to stimulate the economy. To me, this seems like more of a money grab for him than anything else. Here, he was in charge of the Chicago Expo. He had all of these people from all over the world setting up midway exhibits, and I think the idea was to convince some of them to stay and just ship the show. And in a similar version to San Francisco. Of course, why specifically San Francisco and not Los Angeles is a good question. But there were issues. Golden Gate Park Superintendent John McLaren had no interest in a fair in his park, stating the damage to the natural setting would take decades to reverse. Even over McLaren's great objections, the fair was built. It seems a new construction record was reached. Bancroft's Fair book adds a chapter on the 1894 fair and wrote, "Not least among the wonders of the 1894 exposition was the speed with which its structures were erected. It may be said that, like the city which contains them, they sprang up almost in a night. It was not until late in September that the contracts for the first buildings were awarded. And yet, at the formal opening of the 27th of January, a space of about 4 months, all the principal and most of the minor pavilions were practically completed. While none of them rival the magnificent proportions of the Columbian temples, there are many whose skillful composition and beauty of design leave nothing to be desired. The fair encompassed 200 acres, 120 structures were built, and more than 2 million people visited. Like all of the fairs, most of the buildings were torn down after the event. So all of that was done in 4 months' time, almost overnight. 200 acres and 120 giant buildings in 4 months reminded many times in the passage that they sprung up almost in a night, just like the city which contains them. This metaphorical presentation of the fairs going up as if magical power was used is a symbol again and again in the books of the period. They came here and while we warred, took over our cities and kept bringing more peckerwoods off the boat, more orphan babies to raise in a fake narrative, teach them a bunch of lies, and to occupy whatever cities were left and to construct, by our teachings, new buildings and pavilions that you see today. But on the grounds of our ancestral and ancient ways, if you was to go up in the sky and take a picture, you would see how they're laid out. These people weren't smart enough to do it. Otherwise, they would have built the Franklin House, the monument, and everything else by themselves. There's nothing about teaching people and people upkeeping something. That don't mean nothing. But the lie of history, y'all didn't build shit. So you ain't got to like nothing that I'm saying. And any 07042 in here, be the cowards you are. Unsupportive. You just want to be supported and followed. I'm going to talk major poo-poos. Just know that. Check this out. The administration building featured 135 foot tall dome with figures in relief. The horticulture building featured 3 domes to let in light for the plants. The 266 feet high bonnet tower was a large steel tower set in the center of the grand court of honor that used electrical lighting. It was approximately a third the size of the Eiffel Tower, after which it was modeled. The tower was adorned with 3,200 multicolored lights, and the upper level of the tower had a spotlight, Bancroft wrote. In illumination of the fair, the electric tower is the principal feature. For here is one of the most powerful searchlights in the world. Its comet-like rays distinctly visible more than 50 miles at sea. This may mean what it seems it does, or it could be a reference that the tower in fact was the principal feature in making the electricity, not in presenting it. The tower stayed for 2 years after the fair until McLaren had it destroyed with high-powered explosives. Yes, explosives. The Fine Arts Building was an Egyptian revival structure, summoned with the likeness of Hathor. The building itself was a brick structure built 50 feet high with a small pyramid on top. After the Midwinter Exposition ended, it remained, and in parentheses it states, as it was an intended permanent structure and became the Fine Arts Museum. The 1906 earthquake apparently ruined the integrity of the building, which led to closure for repairs. It was not destroyed or vaporized like the rest of the city, just suffered some structural damage. And in 1929, the building was finally torn down. The Manufacturers and Liberal Arts Building, 170,000 square feet, featured many displays from the Columbian Exhibition in Chicago, which against tends to me to be believed that this was just to do it again. Quick kind of venture like Chicago. And there were the ethnic villages, Eskimo, African, and the popular Cairo street. Of course, Now, anybody who knows why I posted there, the Olympics, we were the natives. But the funny thing is, we played all the characters. When I told you there's two distinct groups of individuals between South and North America, the Negro of the North, and our lighter friends, and some dark of the South. A little bigger nose, a little more Asiatic, not so much and so much because we were kind of swapped off as far as women mixing. That's it. Nobody else. No so-called Asians. No Mongols or mongrels. Never. Quick kind of venture like Chicago. Anyway, African in the popular Cairo street, of course, the Cairo street. Egypt type thing, you know. The Santa Barbara Amphibia was an exhibit that held many species of marine life that made the Santa Barbara Channel their home. Basically a giant aquarium. It was faced with a giant Egyptian pyramid. In England, places like, y'all didn't know how to build no goddamn aquarium. Y'all didn't know how to fashion glass appropriately. And we're talking about in the late 1900s. Not until the mid. After the fair, McLaren made sure to have all the fair destroyed from the park. Why? He kept the Fine Arts Building. In parentheses, it states that with its Egyptian look and in the Japanese village, along with multiple statues, is not adequately explained because it was not Japanese, it was Anu. A-N-I-U, Anu. Just like it wasn't Egypt. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. Speaking of statues, I have yet to mention this either. These fairs had tens of thousands of works of art, statues, paintings, and the like. See, 5,000 items have remained in museums. And what happened to all the rest? My guess is that they wound up in the homes of the organizers, who wanted to portray a Renaissance appearance in their mansions and simply confiscated the fair artwork as their own. And then next time we'll get into the earthquake of 1906. Heaven Bearers. The Great Beast of 1834 and the Mud Flood, which is previous to that, Janine Helen. You know, I got a shore in South Africa. Take a drink then. Excuse me. Let me see where I left off at. Here we go. So we left off last time. The storm dies down and the fire dome disappears from the settlement. Snow starts to fall again. No. We was up here. Yeah. All right. She was fighting with the creature. The creature twitches and starts to... Okay. Malcolm. She starts crying hysterically and tries again to get the creature off. But it won't move. She is exhausted and she reaches for him. The twins come running over to her, and Emil takes the shaft and forces it into the creature's head. Amelia takes the shaft and forces it into the creature's head. Amelia quickly joins him, and they use her last bit of strength to force the shaft right through until it hits the ground with a hard bang. The creature twitches and starts to bleed out a white goo while still on top of her. That's where we're at. Get it off of me, she screams. And is in absolute panic. Cassiel runs over to her and helps the twins get the creature off of her. Her clothes are burnt in patches from its saliva, and she is covered in its white blood. She looks up at the canopy and immediately gets onto her feet. Malcolm, she screams. I need to find Malcolm, she says, and tries to gather her thoughts on how to get to him. Cassiel tries to stop her, grabs her by the arm, but she pulls away from him, and with one swift push, she is up in the air and out of sight. The storm dies down and the fire dome disappears from the settlement. Snow starts to fall again, and the resistance starts to cheer in victory. Cassiel looks around and knows their cheers are all in vain. This is just the beginning, he mutters, and looks up into the sky. The heaven bearers will be on their way soon, and the air starts to stink of rotting flesh. Now we get into the groove. Bonnie arrives in the canopy, and she sees Malcolm lying pale and motionless on the floor, and there are many small roots creeping all over him. They are trying to consume him, and she runs over towards him to stop them. Malcolm! She cries out and drops down next to him. She knows he is gone, and she is furious and broken. She starts pulling away the roots and more keep replacing the ones that she pulls away, and she can't keep up. She drops her hand in defeat and puts her head into her hands. That sounds like that movie when the people hikers go and cross up, and one of them gets shot and they run up on top of this pyramid, and the wounded, these vines started growing out of and taking them. You know what I'm talking about. I saw it. I saw our lives together. She is furious and upset, and the tears are rolling down her face, and she can't contain them, nor does she want to. She searches his body to see where he is hurt, and notices a tiny drop of blood on his shirt near his heart. And she knows then that the prophecy was wrong. She can feel another presence arrive suddenly and sees Mother Nature appear in front of her. Her eyes turn completely golden, and she quickly stands up and grabs her. Her eyes stay that golden color, and the tears stop rolling down her cheeks. You did this. How could you be so heartless? For what? She is shaking and she is screaming. He isn't like the others. He could feel. He cared. Her voice is filled to the brim with anger, and her grip starts to tighten, and she wants her to suffer and die. Dear girl, she says, and her words hang in the air. Bonnie wants her to say something else, but she doesn't, and all she can hear are those two words over and over again. Dear girl. Mother Nature isn't what she expected. She expected her to appear as a small, old, and frail lady, just like the tree of life. However, she is not. Mother Nature is a feeling of color, a breeze. She doesn't take on the form of a person, but she speaks like a human. Her voice is soft, like a child, and she isn't happy or angry or sad. Her voice is emotionless, and it reminds her even more of Malcolm and how he was when she first met him. This wasn't necessary. You don't even know what you have unleashed upon this earth. Why do you think they came here? They destroyed their last home and everyone on it, and they plan to do the same here. She screams at the top of her lungs. Her anger begins to scare her because it takes away her humility. Mother Earth changes from orange to red to black. Bonnie wonders what this means and guesses that her color changing signifies her emotions, since she doesn't express them in human form. The Earth bearers, Azrael, they want to destroy the Earth, and you are allowing it. She barks at her and can barely contain her anger or breathe anymore, Breath, I should say breath. I don't know why it's anymore. How can you be so stupid? How could you allow them to trick you? You had peace with the Tartarians for over 1,000 years, and these wretched creatures arrive for a few weeks, and you take their word over that of a king, Fen? Her hands are shaking, her nose is bleeding, and she feels dizzy, and she drops to her knees. Sit down, dear child, she orders her, then brushes her hair out of her face and whispers ever so softly into her ear. It will all become apparent soon. Now go and save the resistance and your children. Hurry, before it is too late. Malcolm belongs to me now. She disappears suddenly with Malcolm and leaves Bonnie standing there all alone. Bonnie's eyes change back to the bright blue color, and she realizes what is about to happen. Down on the ground, and she starts back to them. She lands with a thud and loses her balance and crashes to the ground. Her body and mind are filled with anger and frustration. She is tired and weak. She can't bear the thought or come to terms with the loss of her husband, and her nose is still bleeding slightly. She sees the twins. Their sweet faces are plastered with fear and worry, and she drops down to her knees in defeat. Samira has a knife to Emil's throat, and Kismet is holding one to Amelia's. Rotting flesh and evil fills the air. Azrael walks over towards her and touches her face with his scaly hand, and like a reptile, lets his tongue search the air to taste her fear and pain. He breathes it all in and lets it consume him completely while he savors the moment. It didn't have to be like this, Bonnie. It still doesn't need to be. All you need to do is submit to me, here and now, in the coming pain and suffering. If not for yourself, the millions of Tartarian men and women. Do it for your precious little twins. He is taunting her, and the blood dripping from her nose stops abruptly. Time slows down and she closes her eyes. She thinks about Malcolm and his smile. The way he looked at her, the way he loved her. There is a sudden and loud scream coming from the mountains, and it distracts Azrael for a brief moment, a mere second of a second, and she levitates back onto her feet. Angel of death, you want power? Come and get it. She shouts, and she watches his eyes fill with rage. He wants to storm at her with his claws, aim for her face and head so that he can rip it off of her shoulders. But she knows he wants her, needs her, this time and alive. Mirror and the others from the resistance, with the help of Cassiel, are standing steadfast with the staff among them, and it is emitting the free energy that Azrael so desperately wants to monopolize. He looks over at Bonnie and laughs. Do they not know that it is too late? He scoffs at her, drooling with bloodlust. It is never too late, she replies with looks down at the floor because it is moving beneath her feet. There is a sudden and bright blue flash, and the entire earth stops spinning on its axis. The flash is so bright, it is visible from the galaxy. Brown-colored roots shoot out of the ground and wrap themselves around the legs of the heaven bearers and pin them to the ground. I can't hold them for long. Bonnie, you need to do something quickly. The tree of life implores Bonnie urgently. Bonnie, you need to fight. Sweetheart, you can't give up, not yet. He wouldn't want it. Please, Bonnie. Mirror is pleading with her too. Bonnie doesn't move from her spot. She stands completely still. Her hands are draped by her side, and she feels a whirlwind form around her, sucking in everything that is less than 2 meters away from her. Mirror and Cassiel start to back away from her slowly and realize what she is doing. She is self-destructing, which could cause the entire earth to implode. Everyone, back up now and head to the mountains. Hide wherever you can. Cassiel shouts to the resistance, and they start to panic and run away in fear. The heaven bearers start to feel uneasy and aren't sure if what Cassiel just said is part of the deception or not. Nimna's head starts to shake violently. He is frothing at the mouth, and his eyes pop out of his head and spill onto the ground. His Tartarian body falls over and begins to shine, the same way a diamond would when the light hits it. Just right, and it slowly floats up into the canopy. His true reptilian-like body remains on the ground where he stood, naked, and melts away until it completely dissolves into the ground. Samira and Kismet stand before her with fear in their eyes, and for the first time ever, they are terrified of someone other than Azrael. They simultaneously press the blade into the twins' neck, but feel bare, skin on skin, and realize that the knives that they were holding disintegrated into nothing. They failed miserably, and they try to get away from her, but the roots are still holding tight. God damn it, we're going anticipation. That's a few. That is one of my finest reads. The Heaven Bearers. No, seriously, that is one of my finest reads. I love it. I appreciate you guys coming in. Those who stood fast. I know people are doing stuff. We always have the gophers, and you know I gotta press them. That's just what I have to do. I don't have to do none of that. But anyway, I appreciate it. I'm gonna finish this up. I gotta run out, and I don't know. I might do a podcast tonight. The topic. A lot of y'all be like, "Holy smack!" That's what you'll probably say, but it won't be that serious. All right. And I'll see y'all later. Who all popped in? Rondo, Joshua Northern, Trauma Hawk, Midget Namseed, APJR was cracking. What's going on, families? Hey, look, I'm gonna go ahead and finish eating this. I gotta run out real quick before 4 o'clock, and I might do the podcast tonight. And tomorrow, then maybe I might not. I might just do a podcast tomorrow. There's a few topics I want to address, about 5, and I think they'll be beneficial. Okay. And look, I'm gonna sign off. I gotta get out of here. Love y'all. And the sisters that come along later, to y'all and to you brothers, you already 2 and 1. See y'all in a little bit.